I'm just curious, how many of you get the Magnificat? Did you get the May issue? You did. Father Shea and I didn't, and I feel like I've lost my right arm every time. And you know, I used to have the go-to for the bookstore where I could get a copy, but that isn't the case, and I was going to go up to another Catholic bookstore. But sometimes when you walk in there, and this was this afternoon, it's like when they see you, it's like an hour before you get out of there. So I decided not to do that. I figured I'll find it somewhere else. But Father Shea and I both did not get it this month. Anyway, just curious about that. Today, we hear about the vine and the branches, and we hear about Paul, who was Saul, and had this incredible encounter with Jesus Christ and became a follower, whereas he persecuted the church beforehand, and he's grafted onto that vine, and he becomes a branch that produces much fruit. Jesus uses another agricultural image this week. Last week he was the good shepherd and the sheep, and we know that in the Holy Land that, you know, there's sheep, cattle, there are different elements for sustenance, grapes and figs and dates and wheat and barley. All these kinds of things are very well known to the people that lived there of the time. And we used to grow grapes out here in the East Valley. We'd drive around Chandler and you would see that they were for sale at roadside stands, and you would see the vineyards. I think there's still vineyards in Arizona. I think there's one maybe down towards Tucson. I even hear that there's a winery down there. I've never been down there, but I hear that there is one. But grapes are not something we commonly see grown now, but used to. And I remember our friends had some rural property out in Chandler. It's all grown up around there now, but they grew grapes on their property, and I took vocational agriculture in high school at Tempe High and was part of the Future Farmers of America. So grapes were part of my experience in agriculture. And you would see them grow, and they'd put out those tendrils, and they'd climb up the trellises or whatever you would put out there for them, and they would produce fruit. This time of the year, they would be growing exponentially. But in the wintertime, they had to be pruned. And when you would prune them, sometimes they looked like a stick popping out of the ground. And Jesus talks about this. My Father is the vine grower. I am the vine, and you are the branches. So my Father tends everything, and the sap that goes to you flows through me. And he calls us to bear much fruit. And then he talks about the pruning. And I remember again that pruning and how so much was pruned off, and then you would think nothing's going to come back, and then the next spring it would be flourishing, and then eventually produce those grapes. Am I a fruitful branch, or am I a branch that does not bear fruit, a fruitless branch? That's the question that we have to ask ourselves as we follow Christ. And how do I know if I'm a fruitful branch or if I'm going to be pruned and left? You know, and he said that those ones that are pruned off will dry up and they won't blow away. They will be thrown in the fire. Does that mean what I think it means? Yes. Yes. So when you prune a vine and that piece falls off, it dries up. And if you think about it from the people that he's talking to, it's wood, but it's wood that's good for nothing. You can't do anything. It's a small stick. So it dries up, and so what do you use it for? Well, I use it for kindling in my oven to get the other bigger pieces of wood going. It's thrown in the fire. How do I know if I'm producing fruit or if I'm a fruitless branch? The answer is in the gospel. Obey the commandments of God. And some will just kind of flippantly say, yeah, that's what I do that. I remember recently somebody in the Catholic world sent me an email, put out, I don't know where this woman is from, but this proclamation came out from the Vatican about a certain moral issue that and it's not new. It's not new. It said, here's what the church believes. Here's what we teach. And this woman flipped out. She flipped out. You're like, well, it's right there in the Bible. It's right there in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. And it goes back to, way, way before the Catholic Church was ever founded by Jesus Christ. Goes back to Judaism and beyond. It's against the moral law. She flips out. She thinks she's a faithful Catholic, and it's like, I wish we could sit down. I don't know who she is, but it's like, you are not. You are not. So she gets upset, and she goes to her pastor. And I don't know how long she's been at the parish, but it sounds like a while. And it sounds like the pastor's a good man who tells the truth. And he tried to pastorally share the truth with her. She flips out and says that he's an evil man and those priests in Rome are evil men. And she goes to a dissenting parish, essentially. She doesn't call it that, but I do. She goes where her ears will be tickled. As St. John says in his writings, tickled with all kinds of newfangled ideas that have nothing to do with the truth. And they trade truth for what they want to hear. It reminds me, the new Top Gun movie is going to be coming out. I can't wait. And I really want to see it with Father Shea because he is a pilot. Now, he's not into fighter planes like I am, but he still appreciates. And Tom Cruise has done a lot to make this Top Gun more authentic when the guys are pulling the G-forces where you can see their faces and the breathing rhythms that they have to have as they're pulling those G-forces. And he wants the actors to have an authentic experience flying the F-18 Hornet. But in the first movie, when Tom Cruise, Maverick, goes to his commander, Viper, and he wants to know his status as a candidate for the Top Gun program, I won't repeat what Viper said, but you know what he said if you've watched the movie as many times as I have. I'm not going to blow sunshine where the sunshine does not shine, essentially, is to paraphrase what he says. That's what some people want from the Catholic Church. I don't want the truth. I want you to blow sunshine. Well, friends, I'm not going to do that because I want to go to heaven. I want to go to heaven and I want to take you with me. See, this woman, she went back online to watch Father preach about this subject because it was very prominent those many weeks ago. And he did preach on it. And I imagine he did a fair job. Oh, she was so denounced him. He's evil just like these other priests and so forth. And you're like, no, he's trying to tell you the truth and you want your ears tickled. No, we love God and love neighbor is how we follow Jesus and become members of the vine, branches. Love God, love neighbor, love Jesus, and do what he says. Follow his commandments. They're not suggestions, they're commandments. And how do I know if I love God? Again, follow his commandments. There was somebody in my office many years ago, couple actually. They were not married. The man involved, he catted around. He was very unfaithful during their relationship. And the woman involved essentially came to ask me, should I give this guy another chance? I'm not sure of the whole situation. I think they had a few kids, but he was always messing around. And he had some sort of enlightenment. No, Father, I love this woman more than anything. I'm like, buddy, maybe that's true. But you know what? Here's the history. Here's the history. And my suggestion to her is to pull the pin on you. You're a lemon with a capital L. You say you love her. You've done all of this other stuff. It's not evident. It is not evident. Friends, we need to love God, to follow his commandments, to do what he asks us to do, love our neighbor. That's how we stay on the vine, at least in part. Jesus is the vine. We are the branches. And how else do we stay on the vine? Right here. In the same gospel, he says, I'm the light of the world. And he says, I am the bread of life. And it's interesting that he says, I am the vine, you are the branches. And the clusters produce the wine. And there could be a serious connection to the Eucharist. And unfortunately, in this time, we're not able to receive the precious blood. Nonetheless, we receive the fullness of Jesus in the Eucharist, but the sign is less full without receiving the precious blood. But we remember that this is our spiritual nourishment. This is how we stay on the vine. You know, I don't know how the folks have done it at home for the last year. Maybe you live stream and you come and receive communion. If you haven't received communion in a year, personally me, I would be dead. Because my life is drawn from here. When I was in the seminary, I went to Mass every day. And Father Klein, who was the director of vocations, told us as seminarians, seriously, he said, if you have a problem going to daily Mass, I seriously challenge your call to be a priest. How do we survive? How do we not wither and fall off the branch or fall off the vine? Right here. So friends, if you're at home and you've been live streaming for a year and you haven't received communion, don't walk. Run tomorrow at 10 a.m. to receive communion, either outside or inside. But the place will be clear. There's going to be a guy coming through here with the sprayer sanitizing everything. A lot of us have had the vaccine. A lot of us have had COVID virus, so have a measure of immunity. And outside, if that's what you need to do, you're probably 90% safe. There's nothing that's 100% safe. But if you haven't received communion, I think you're going to dry up and fall off the vine. Friends, we don't want that to happen. We need to stay close to the Lord and love him in authenticity by stepping back and saying, am I following his commandments? Or am I, now we all fall to sin, but am I obstinately, like this letter, obstinately opposing his will and pushing others to do the same? No, we need to be members of the body of Christ. And that means being a branch on the vine, a branch that does not wither.